the growth of your business ventures is almost entirely equivalent to the growth of yourself.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Build Your Vision podcast, the podcast for emerging creative entrepreneurs who want to build their best business and their best lifestyle. And if you're a loyal visionary, welcome back to the show. If you're new and you're interested in business, self-improvement, lifestyle development, you're in the right place. Subscribe to the show. You can automatically get your weekly dose, your weekly fix of this valuable information. I'd like to thank the sponsors for this show, you guys. Yeah, my fellow visionaries, the listeners, you guys are the sponsors for this show. Thank you for sharing the show. I don't put any ad dollars. I don't put any money into my marketing strategy, at least not yet. And the show can only grow if you guys choose to share it. So I am grateful for all of you guys that have been sharing the episodes, sharing it with your friends, putting it on your IG stories. I really do. If you want to be a sponsor for the episode, share the pod on your Instagram story, text a link, call your friend, do whatever you need to do. Just make sure if you find the information valuable, just don't keep it to yourself, because that's how the show grows and that's how I'm able to get more feedback on what people need so I can deliver more value. So, okay, I am super excited for this episode because today we are talking to one of the smartest young people I know. And his name is Mark Metry. If you're a podcast junkie, you probably know this name already because Mark is the host of the Top 100 podcast, Humans 2.0. He's talked to some of the most brilliant and innovative minds on the earth, really, such as Seth Godin, Mark Manson, Ed Mylett, and many, many more. His podcast is all about mindset and developing yourself into the best version of yourself that you can be, the 2.0 version of yourself, kind of, hence the title of the podcast. So I wanted to have Mark come on the show and chat about this for a little bit, because if we're going to be building our visions, our businesses, the lifestyles that we've always dreamt of, we need to work on ourselves first, right? So without further ado, let's get into this episode with Mark Metry. He comes straight out the gate, really hot and heavy. So make sure you put on your thinking cap, make sure it's strapped on tight, and be ready to just apply this information into your daily life. Let's go.
Loading.
Extra, read all about it.
It's a case study for success.
Be teachable.
What better way to learn than to just ask?
The learning process becomes a journey.
Turning dreams into realities.
Part of execution is totally believing whatever you're doing is going to work.
What are your passions and what are your gifts? And that's where it really starts.
Chances are for taking. Take a chance on yourself.
Any and everyone is capable of being a leader.
You're not going to have all the answers immediately.
Wow. Mentors to expose you to things that you otherwise wouldn't know.
It was all I thought about and dreamed. Like I would literally get up in the morning, practice, because I knew the time would come.
Just do it.
So, like, this is the most powerful exercise because, so, like, if you're somebody that you feel like you haven't been living your own life, if you feel like you've been, like, repressed, or maybe you're, like, somebody that I was sort of describing myself, what I began to do, and I literally did this in the back of one of my classes once because I was so, like, sick and tired of living this, you know, what an author calls, this life of quiet desperation. And I just began to get sick of that. And dude, what I ended up doing, and this is what I recommend to everyone, is like, first off, find a time and also find a space where you're going to be by yourself. There's not going to be anybody around you. There's not going to be anybody close to you, just because like this activity, this thing that I think is really powerful, you just got to be by yourself. And that's where it starts. And what I did is, and what I recommend people to do is, I'd literally whip out a piece of paper and I would just like ask myself, I write down the question just because that's how I think of, like, you know, Mark, what are you like not getting yourself to admit? Mark, why, like, what is the thing that you were absolutely terrified of? Like, Mark, what is the thing that you know you should be doing, like somewhere deep down amidst like all the excuses and all the lying layers of reality that we talked about on top that aren't actually your life? Right. And like, you ask yourself those questions and you dedicate the time and the space for it. Like, you put yourself in a room for like an hour, like you're going to come out a completely different person. Like that's where it all starts. Wow. That's not how to actually do it. You still have to actually do the work after. But I mean, I think that's where it all starts, all because of, like, again, like, I can't stress this enough. Like, you've got to put truth and maybe some other values that you think are really important to you in life. Like, maybe it's love, maybe it is kindness, maybe it is gratitude, like whatever that is for you. Like, you've got to find the roots, the values, the morals that are going to basically create your life. And once you have that, now you've sort of got like a sturdy foundation. Right. Like, I think a lot of people, like, for example, like, they'll go on like a diet. They'll try out like this tactic, like this strategy, like, oh, I'm going to do this or not do this for a certain amount of time. But what ends up happening is, like, you know, everyone always talks about action, and it's like, yeah, action is a great thing. Like, action is another foundation of life. But it's like, you've got to be taking action in a meaningful way that is like building on top of your values. So if you're just somebody that has no understanding of life, you have no understanding of like mindset or fulfillment, like real happiness, and you just like say to yourself that, like, if you're in the same position that I was and you're like, man, I just gained a ton of weight. How do I lose this weight? What diet do I need to go on? And then you just like begin to like just do a thing, take action. And oftentimes that will like end up orienting you maybe towards something that you begin to understand about yourself, something to like. But if you're just taking action and sort of like oh, I'm just going to try out this diet, and if it works, that's great. If it doesn't, okay, whatever. But if you don't address, like, again, the underlying issue by building that foundation, like, you're just not going to go far in life. And so if you combine all those things that I said, and then you combine that with sort of like the resources of life, that's what I like to say. And what I mean by resources is time, and then also how you use that time, right? Those are basically the only two resources that we have in life. Sure, there are material things, and that's really important, like money and different things like that. But to me, what it's all about is resources, okay? So how you spend your time, that depends on the mechanisms. I've had many best-selling and top-of-the-name authors in like the line of like productivity and time management. And what they're saying is that it's not actually about time management. It's actually about energy management, okay? Because once you like sort of begin to understand these things about your life, then you just need to take like a ridiculous amount of action. But you've got to understand how to actually do that. And it's like, if you were operating life in like a vehicle, like in a car, you need to take care of that car, right? Well, it's like our driver in life that carries our consciousness, that is our body. So you've got to take care of the body first and foremost. And that comes in the ways of, like we talked about, food, moving it around, exercise, sleeping for 8 hours, making sure that you are integrating some sort of body stress relief and coping mechanism like meditation, breathing, yoga, hugging somebody, doing other things. There's a wide variety of things that you can do that can sort of like naturally relieve the body of stress. Breathing is a really great one in meditation. And so you just begin to look at, okay, so resources in life. I've got time, then I've got how in which I spend my time. So I've got this vehicle. We've got to take care of that first and foremost, okay? Right. So you got to make sure that you're healthy in all the buckets of your life. So that means physically, mentally, emotionally, and then spiritually.
Yeah.
Okay? Those are the 4 buckets. Everyone's got like different criteria for those. But that is like, that's the roadmap. And then I think once you have that, this is the thing that really helped me is you got to create a system or something that's bigger than yourself. And the matter of the fact is a lot of people try to undergo these changes. And for whatever reason, the people in their life aren't right. They have so much toxic negative programming. They end up quitting. Or they end up not giving their best shot. Yeah. And I think like the matter of the fact is when people are like that, it can like, mess with them in so many different ways. And it's like the greatest thing that you can do is tie in some sort of a social community aspect to your life, because humans are social creatures. And so if you can sort of create a vision that's bigger than yourself, and maybe you're just starting out and you have no resources, you don't have any skills, even you feel like you have a ton of issues, you're unskilled, like, dude, while you're doing all this work, like, try to make something bigger than yourself. Like, right, yeah. go to like a shelter or something and like volunteer to like, I don't know, cook food for homeless people, or maybe start like a Instagram page or a podcast about something that's like a bigger thing than you, that's not about you, but it's something bigger that you can sort of like put yourself in. Right. Because dude, what I begin to realize is this, man, like the reason why I go to the gym every day is to simulate adversity, is to simulate stress. Because if I can simulate stress in my body and I can do what needs to be done at the gym to adapt to that stress, when I get stressed out during my day, I'm going to know how to cope with it. The same thing stands true for meditation. Like for me, like in the morning, when I close my eyes for 20-25 minutes and I am trying to focus on my breath, I'm simulating an environment that quite frankly does not exist in the real world, but it's designed in a way just naturally that if you sort of put your fullness in these activities like meditation, where you're trying to do something, or same thing like going to the gym, you're basically strengthening your mind for when actual life happens, you don't get hit as hard and you know how to get up and adapt. Mm-hmm. I learned the same thing is true for business, entrepreneurship, whatever you call it. Mm-hmm. When you're running a business, it's the same exact thing. You're putting yourself in this sort of exterior system, something bigger than yourself, so you can sort of be like an integrative, interlocking piece with that system to grow, to have a reason to wake up in the morning when you don't feel like it because you have clients, you have things to do that a business requires to run, you have people, you have a staff team, you have to do this and that. And it's just like, if you combine all those things that I just said, and you, again, are doing this every single day and just don't understand, that there's no quick fix, that like this is it forever, like this is never going to end. Right. But at that same duality though, this is what I always like to say, you have to sort of face with like, yeah, it never ends. Like you have to do these things, these habits to be a different version of yourself every single day. It never ends. Doesn't matter if you're this successful, doesn't matter if you have this amount of dollars in your bank account. You have to keep doing those. But at the flip side, you've also got to imagine, hey, you could die today. Mm. You know what I mean? Like you could walk outside today and get hit by a truck and die. Right? Or you could, let's say, not get hit by a truck, but just die when you're like 70 or 80, but you just don't end up doing the things that you want to do. And I just find that you just encapsulate all those ideas I think that's a great place to start. What do you think?
Yeah, like honestly, I love it when guests do this. They answer the questions I was going to ask without me even asking them. So like one thing that you touched on, what I was going to ask was, okay, I got started. I'm going to go to roll, but how do you maintain? Because that's a whole nother aspect within itself. I mean, it's a great step to start. It's all about starting first, but then maintaining is where it gets even more difficult. And you kind of answered that with having what the 4 buckets that you covered are things that you have to make sure that you have in place before you can even think about moving forward long term, or else you're gonna tucker out. You're gonna eventually quit. And then also covering the something bigger than yourself. So I mean, I guess it might be safe to categorize that as a why of why you're doing something, and it's beyond what you are. Whether it's I'm doing this healthy regimen because I want to be around to watch my son grow up, get a job, and get married, or whatever it is that's outside of you that motivates you to keep doing it. Because if it's just within yourself, oftentimes, even though that's not necessarily a great thing, we could quit on ourselves a lot easier. I don't know why that's the case,
right.
But that's just the way, how we're just set up as humans. I don't know why. So you kind of covered those. And then you also touched on a few other things that I wanted to ask you about, which one was, do you meditate? And it sounds like you do when you said that you do, the 25 minutes of focusing on your breath and things like that. So I completely agree with what you said, and I just love that you kind of answered those questions, and I kind of just was able to recap those to make sure that the audience understood them. That was awesome. And one thing that I just want to also ask you is, you touched on all these subjects, and I'm sure people are going to have to listen back to this episode. This is one of these episodes where you got to listen to it a couple of times because you're just dumping so much value into this 30 minutes. But loyalty to your mind, body, and spirit, and what it needs. How do you I'm trying to find the right words, because you have to maintain loyalty to these things in order, I think, just to be the best you can be. How do you I'm running out of how I'm trying to say it.
How do you like find out how to fill those buckets?
Yeah, how do you find out to fill those mind, body, spirit, those buckets, and remain loyal to keeping those filled, Yeah,
I think that's an interesting question. So, I mean, dude, this is what it's all about, man. You've got to have a vision of yourself. Like, you've got to, like, Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah, I love Joe Rogan.
I was just reading this quote from him today, and I've heard him say this on his podcast, and it's this idea of like, live your life like you're the hero in your own movie. Right now is when the movie starts and your life is a disaster. Pretend that's you. Pretend you are in the part of the movie that shows you as a loser, and then just decide not to be a loser anymore. And the way you do that is you have to think that you're the hero in your own movie. And it's like, it's not exactly, it's super powerful. And it's so like, good. Yeah, a movie, yeah, but it's like a bigger vision for yourself, man. So it's like, the reason why people do things is because they have big reasons to do them. It's really as simple as that. And you've got to find your angle, whatever that way that is. Like, I interviewed this guy, his name is Ed Milet. And he is, he's ripped. First off,
yes,
he's like ranked in the wealthiest 50 people under the age of 50. And when I was interviewing him, I was asking him like, dude, how are you ripped? Like literally the same question. Like, how do you have the discipline to do all these different things? And he told me, he's like, I have big reasons to do them. And the story that he gave me is like, he ended up going to his doctor one day, and his doctor said, like, he was basically, I think he was like pre-diabetic, or he was like predisposed to like this heart condition. And his doctor basically told him, like, instead of just telling him that he had that disease or whatever, he was like, do you have a daughter? And he was like, yeah. And the doctor said, do you want to walk your daughter down the aisle at her wedding? And he was like, what the hell? Yeah, of course I do. And he said, do you want another guy to do that instead? And it's like, he was like, dude, doctor, what the hell are you saying to me? Right. And what the doctor was doing, he was sort of impregnating the idea, the reason of then the treatment for that of eating right, going to the gym, exercising, make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're, doing X, Y, and Z right. And it's like the reason why he does that every morning, like Ed was telling me, he was like, dude, like literally that day that we recorded, he was telling me like, dude, I did not want to go to the gym today, but I woke up and I snapped, and he said, Bella's wedding, which is his daughter's name, because it's like, he's just finds a reason to leverage himself to sort of like get himself to do things. It doesn't matter how he feels about it, sort of no matter the situation. And so like, that is a big, big step, man. And second off, what I would say is just like, move towards just the thing that is causing you the most pain. Just move towards it.
Move towards it as in what?
Move towards it as in, like, here's the thing, man. What I began to realize is this. The reason why I kind of fell down my own version of rock bottom, and I got fat and lazy and was doing X, Y, and Z that just kind of drove me down like this suicidal time in my life, was because I was always trying to seek comfort. I hated pain. I never wanted to have a relationship with pain. And what I mean by that is this. I remember, man, whenever things would get tough in my life, I would always just run towards pleasure or comfort. Like, I remember after school, I would go through like a drive-through, or I'd stop by someplace and like buy a bag of candy or something. Right. And it's like, I was always just trying to avoid pain at all costs. And what I began to realize is you have to have a daily relationship with pain. Like, it's almost a necessary part of your life that you visit every day. And what I began to realize is that when you actually face your own pain, when you actually feel it and you don't mask it with a ton of things that give you pleasure and comfort, like, eating a ton of, whatever, like ice cream or food, whatever it is, like video games,
right? Yeah.
Having sex, like whatever that is for you.
Coping mechanisms. Yeah.
All the ways that we cope with pain. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, and they're unhealthy and they're unsustainable. And it's just like, when you begin to really face the true pain, you will be motivated to do whatever it is in your life. And it's like that and fear are the guiding mechanisms of where you need to go in life. Like, that's it. Like, that is the compass. It's fear and what you're afraid of. Because what you begin to realize is what you're afraid of, dude, is actually something where you have so much energy that you could actually crush at. And what I mean by that is this, man. I spent the first 18 years of my life not wanting people to know who I am. I spent that, whenever, like in school, I had to present or anything, I would either not show up, tell the teacher I couldn't present, or I would like go to the bathroom for like an hour and I just go to, do whatever it is because I had a, upset stomach because I was so nervous, man. Yeah. But then fast forward to today, dude, I'm like traveling around the world and people are paying me money to speak to like thousands of people. Mm-hmm. And it's just like that is crazy. And it's just like, whatever area in your life that you're afraid of, whatever area that is causing you the most pain, that is actually your compass. Like, those are your directions. Like, that's where you should go. And as you move throughout that, man, the real thing that's going to get you, that's going to separate you from somebody who maybe just took one opportunity one time, got lucky, I don't know, maybe got like a viral YouTube video, or maybe got, he maybe won the lottery or something like that. That's going to separate you, the daily rituals, from that person and actually be a lifelong success in your own eyes. And it's like, it's the things that you do every single day, man. And it's like, everyone has different buckets. You just got to find a way to fill those in a healthy sort of coping stress mechanism way, man. So like for me, like, I don't know where I'd be if I was not sleeping at the same time every day for 7.5 to 8 hours, was meditating every day, was writing down every day, was keeping track of everything, was eating of the super utmost health down to an app that tracks it on my phone, not in terms of my food, but in terms of like my gut microbiome and what I should and should not be eating, different things like that. And it's just like, dude, that's the work, man. Like it's both of those realms of like, yeah, you've got to have the practicality of the habits and the scheduling and all these different things, but you've also got to have like a sort of like a existential, philosophical, maybe even spiritual sort of way at looking at things from a bigger picture that's going to sort of guide your life in the future. Right. To a point where you're living life in the present moment to create for years and years and years and years to come in a way that should be exponential if you're doing it right.
Right. Man, that is so good. To kind of bring this home a little bit, I want you to kind of see if you could bottle this into a way that this could be very practical and useful for young entrepreneurs. I mean, it's kind of obvious because you are one yourself. But I don't know. I feel like you could just say it in a way that will resonate with the listener.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, this is probably like the most common thing that I get asked, where somebody's like 18 or 19 or 20 or 25, and they're like, yo, I want to start like a business, or I want to like start making money in this way or this or that. And I mean, dude, what I always say to them are two things. First and foremost, in a sort of practical but sort of non-practical, kind of looking at the higher view first, is the growth of your business ventures is almost entirely equivalent to the growth of yourself. Yeah. And what I mean by that is this, like, businesses are going to come, businesses are going to go, you're going to start. Like, dude, I literally don't even know how many businesses I've started. Like, I genuinely don't know. I've completely lost track. Like, I remember when I was like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, I was launching different things left and right. Like, I honestly have no idea. But it's just like, out of all of those things, only a few of them become successful. Like, that's generally speaking the way that it works for everybody. And so what I think is really, really important is like, stemming from that is like, if you know that the growth of your business is entirely equated to you, the second thing that I tell entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, is this: because you probably know that your businesses are going to fail. And like, I'm not trying to say this in like a pessimistic way. Like, I'm the most optimistic person you'll probably ever meet, but in a realistic way. But here's the thing, like if you're 18 and this is like your first thing, like, there's a very, very low percentage that, you're going to create like the Uber or like the Starbucks or the Tesla or whatever that is, right? Yeah. So it's like, you've got to start with where you are. And like, you've just got to realize that like these, like all these different things, especially in the beginning where you don't really know what to do, like a ton of them are not going to be successes. Some of them, you're going to start them and you're going to be like, wow, this is actually a really stupid idea. So I'm actually going to quit this to actually change the business, or I'm not going to quit this, but I'm going to pivot the business model, or I'm going to change what I'm doing so I can put my time and energy in a great place. So because you know all that, what I say to people is like this: you got to build a personal brand online, on social media, whether it's your podcast or whatever it is, but you've got to build a personal brand that is able to be sort of lifelong, because, your first business may not be here in 5 years, but you are. In 10 years from now, whatever you end up starting when you were 20 might not be here because you just realized it wasn't a great place of your time, but you will be. And so if you can put your resources, your assets into building not only, whatever it is, your business, even though you don't really have to start a business to make money, but if you can create some sort of a personal brand that is tied to your name, that is encompassing of the truth of who you actually are, like, dude, you're going to be so ridiculously successful. Like, all the people that we know, that everybody knows, like the people that are really out there, like Gary Vee and like whatever names that come to mind, like all those people are successful because they've built a personal brand that is not just built on the foundation of just having a personal brand, but because they're just like a real person that just does a ton of things in life. Right. And this is just another way that they've found to influence other people and then also use as a tool to get them things in life. Like, there's no coincidence right there. 100%.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the knowledge. You really broke down some things that I've been wondering about myself and that I feel like so many people overlook when it comes to just being the best them that they could be. They hear lots of things, and we live in an age of so much information overload. You don't really know where to start, or you get pulled this direction, and then you kind of end up doing nothing. I appreciate it, man.
I wish you the best luck, man. Keep on doing what you're doing, man. I'm telling you, dude, it's like, it's all about the consistency. It's all about the long game.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mark Metry. If you want to look up Mark, his information, listen to his podcast, book him for a speaking engagement, all his info will be in the show notes. I hope that this episode gave you a little bit of insight into how important the mind, body, and spirit is in your life in general. If we want external success that we often talk about on this show, it will never happen without internal success first. I promise you guys, I perform the best, get the most gains, the most productive, the most effective, get the most progress when I intentionally take care of my body, my mind, and my soul. And I have that extra drive and clarity that honestly, it's kind of unexplainable until you try it for yourself. And I hope you do so, especially after listening to this episode. If you are liking the podcast, leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It really does help the show grow, helps the rankings for the show. So I would greatly appreciate it if you like the show, if you could do that. If you have any suggestions for the pod to make it better or for future episodes or anything like that, you can DM us on Instagram at Build Your Vision Pod. All right, guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and keep building your vision every single day. Peace.